Hello and welcome everyone. This is Alex with Bronamic Gaming. I'm here to share with you one of our first replays for the A2 Bro series. This is going to be a series focused on Rome Total War II battles of generally replays of battles where we're generally outnumbered. In this particular one, I'm playing as the Romans, and we're going against 3 armies of Bactria. So there's a large force here, as you can see, that's besieging my settlements. And they're being reinforced by 2 other large armies as well. And so they're full of elephants, they've got cavalry, and they've got pikemen. Bactria's not an easy foe to fight against. A lot of people make the mistake of trying to fight large battles in the open field areas, and there's a downside to that when you're fighting against forces that have things like elephants and heavy cavalry and archers. Because they can flank you really well, and the computer can maneuver certain ways that we're not able to keep up with as easily. So I generally like to actually retreat to towns like this. The reason being, you can funnel them in certain ways so that you make sure that they meet your army where you want them to meet you at. And for instance, in this situation, when there's this army starting out here, I'm going to expect them to actually come through this street down this way, and then also maybe send another force down this way. Now, depending on where they start off, you might want to reposition your army in different ways accordingly if you want to strategize that way. In this particular one, I'm actually retreated to the town center here. The reason I do this is because there's only 2 points of attack. They can only hit me effectively from this side and from this side. And so I really only need to defend from 2 points. Sometimes you might defend here in this center, which I've done before in the past, but in this particular battle, not so much. I also, you'll notice I do a half square formation. So I have a line of infantry here as well as here. And the reason I do that is because there's always going to be flanking fire, which is always very important in this game. You'll notice that I have some peltasts behind my infantry. They're, depending on what faction you are, you might use archers for this, you might use javelin men. I also have some artillery that I'm going to use to fire over the heads of my troops. And this force actually that's attacking me does have some artillery on the way, and so that's why I actually start off with my cavalry way out here. And so you'll notice as the battle progresses that I'm going to split my cavalry that way and this way, because depending on where they come from, I want to make sure I have some cavalry close by that I can flank that artillery with, and I also want to make sure I hide them in these trees so that the enemy doesn't see them. For those of you who are kind of new to the game, whenever your unit has this eye icon above it, that means that they're hidden from the enemy view, and so artillery won't be able to spot you to hit you with. And for me, it's kind of dangerous being in consolidated form like this because it's going to be really easy for any of their shots to smash through a lot of my units. But luckily, I have a lot of cover here, which is another really cool thing about this game, is you can utilize the buildings as protection from javelins and such. Archers can shoot up and over, and they can arc their firing weapons like that. But I don't have to worry about that so much right now. And so with this army, I actually have one full army of Romans, mainly infantry, as you saw on the earlier screen. I use some archers to back them up, and then I also have the town militia in addition. And so I'm still pretty outnumbered here, but again, with this formation here, it's really pretty flawless in these situations. Basically what happens is the enemy infantry, you'll notice throughout this match, will come and they can only attack one or the other. Unless they all flood in at once, which also this can defend against pretty well. So what happens is whenever they attack, for instance, this unit, these infantry legionnaires will throw their javelins at them from the side, and then the javelin men behind them will throw their javelins over the heads and into the flanks, and you'll get a lot more kills that way. Same thing with this. Since they're funneling through this street here, you're going to notice that this artillery is going to be firing down, and they'll be packed up in a big mass here, and so there's going to be a lot of kills in this area as well. So without further ado, let's get started. I have my general here because I think he's pretty well hidden. He's guarded from this area from arrow fire, and archers can't really get to him from here because these guys are going to be engaged. Another thing that you might notice, if in case I forget, is sometimes it's a good idea to manually, personally select and utilize this artillery, especially with this giant fixed ballista. Whenever you go into camera mode during a battle, you can actually manually aim and fire the weapon. I also use flaming ammunition, which you'll notice, and the reason I do that is because I actually think it gets more kills than the exploding pots, and the reason for that is the exploding pots can often miss, and they're inaccurate, and so if you miss a whole unit, that's a lot of deaths that you've missed out on, basically. So whenever they're on fire, though, they can actually bounce, and so if it doesn't hit its initial target, it might bounce and hit the units behind it, and so I actually like the flaming missiles a lot more with artillery. So here we go. You see my cavalry moved out. I might have made some different decisions with this guy. I decided to bring him back because I noticed that the enemy armies are coming from this area as well as way back here. And this is actually where the artillery is going to end up coming from, but I'm not going to know that. Now, ideally, I'd be able to pause and make maneuvers perfectly, but in this particular battle, this is in a campaign where I played on Legendary, and you're not allowed to make commands as the game's paused in Legendary mode. Now, the Romans are relatively easy to play as, especially when you upgrade them to these legionary cohorts, because they're very heavy melee infantry, and they do a really good job of holding a line. They're not great against cavalry as much, but I mean, they're better than lighter unit troops. That's also why I have these spearmen here, is because I'm anticipating some elephants coming down this way. So here, as I suggested earlier, they're running down here. My archers are hitting them. I have some auxiliary archers. True to Roman fashion, I hired a lot of slingers and archers from other areas that I've conquered because they're a lot better with their range and even damage sometimes than those velites that you start out with. And here we go with that flanking fire. See, they're going to come straight across, and of course my guys wipe them out with their missile weapons. Here comes the next group. And these Romans are about to get smashed by some cavalry, but they hold the line, which is what they're there for. So here we go. So their job is just to hold the line there. Here come some elephants. And again, my legionnaires are throwing their javelins to the side, which is a good flank because they're not as armored on the side or the back. And here I manually fired a few shots right into the oncoming horse. That's my shot right there. I missed a little bit. But I'm aiming for these guys, this group of missile units. And those elephants too. There goes those elephants, which are one of the biggest threats in this situation. Some more guys are coming down this way. Now these pikemen are tough to fight, and that's another reason why this half square formation is good, because when you have more of an overhead view, I can flank them with my infantry, and you see my archers and javelin men throwing into their flanks, and so they're going to break and rout pretty soon here. So I actually brought this cavalry unit over here because I'm planning to flank them at some point. I don't want to do that just yet. I want to wait for their archers to congregate here because the AI will often do that. And I've got these guys hiding way over here because their artillery are on the way. I don't see them yet though. So spearmen, of course, are ideal, and phalanx pikemen are perfect against cavalry and elephants, but I don't have a lot of them in this army, so it's not the best situation. But again, these legionnaires are pretty good at holding the line, even against cavalry. This guy's about to break and rout. I have a huge pocket of different troops over here as well to reinforce any lines. And so my goal with this formation and this setup is to minimize casualties as much as possible. A lot of times, I'm sure many of you have probably noticed in the campaigns where you might just get hammered time and time again without even any time between turns to replenish your units. And so by minimizing casualties like this, I can make sure that this army survives and that I hold this town. Now, actually, really the only times I'm going to attack enemy areas, armies outside of a town, is if they're rebels and if I know they're going to attack soon. Generally, I'll try to retreat and defend a town just because I think it's a lot easier when you're defending like this, again, because you can funnel them in certain ways. That way, you don't have to spread your troops out as much. I also remember reading from medieval military strategy history books that the most important battles have to do with taking or losing territory. So if you fight in an open battle, you're not really gaining anything unless your army is specifically, its goal is to wipe out, a major threat. So this is tough because those pikemen are coming in, and as many of the Rome Total War veterans know, or any Total War veterans know, with phalanxes, there's not really much that can defeat it from the front other than another phalanx. So my guys are starting to get pushed back here. So I've actually probably directed my javelin men to hit them in the back. So I'm trying to wipe out as many as possible so that they'll break their morale and runaway route. Now again, I'm making sure that my artillery are trained on guys far away, because if they're too close, for instance, you got to keep an eye on them, because if you told them to attack these cataphracts, for instance, they're going to be giving your guys friendly fire. So you want to be able to reposition them and retarget their intended targets. So now I'm sending some troops here to reinforce. Same thing over here. These guys have pretty much finished. I've held that force off. Now, at some point, I'm going to send my cavalry into the flank. Oh, yep, there they go. And here comes those artillery that I was talking about. These Greek heavy onagers, now they can fire, they have a lot of range, they do a lot of damage when they impact. So I want to be able to intercept them pretty quickly. Which it looks like I'm starting to move this cavalry unit into position. Now those hoplites have pretty much served their purpose. I had them here to kind of be a punching bag for the enemy forces to take the brunt of those charges, those elephants and those cavalry charges, and so they've done their job and now they've retreated. And again, I might actually have manually selected this catapult to fire him down that line. They call it, in the military, they call it enfilade. When you fire lengthwise down a unit, you get as many kills as possible. So that flanking fire is just very important in Rome Total War 2. If you want to utilize your missile units to the best extent, you want to make sure you get them with flanks. Sending my gladiator spearmen to deal with some of these pesky noble horsemen and cataphracts. I always like those gladiators because they have a pretty good bonus depending on what specialty they are. So if they're just normal gladiators, they're good at hand-to-hand combat with other infantry, and then these spearmen, of course, have really good damage against cavalry and infantry alike. Downside is they don't have a lot of armor, so you generally don't want to use them to bolster or to as a receiving end of a charge. You want to use them to bolster or reinforce any arms. So in this situation, you actually saw me break that formation, and that's because I want to hold them off a little bit. I also wanted to engage these light peltists to stop them from maximizing on their potential kills. Looks like I forgot to use these guys. So now I'm bringing them back. Now you're going to see me reposition. So I'm going to actually leave this unit out here, even though they've broken that half square formation that goes like this. I'm going to leave them out here to reposition that half square formation. Pretty soon here anyway. So here comes more pikemen and those hillmen. Those hillmen aren't much of a threat, especially against legionnaires, but if they get a good flank on you, they could still wipe out a lot of units. So I really want to take out these cataphracts, get these guys to break in a route, and then I'm going to reposition my troops back into that formation. Looks like I'm setting these gladiators up for a good flank on those pikemen too. Because again, remember, anything that tries to hit them from the front is really going to pay the price. And so you want to either hit them in the flanks with cavalry or infantry or archers. And here I am sending in my gladiators to make short work of them. Because if you flank them like that, they can't maintain that formation, which is so deadly. So they try to reposition, but at that point, they're levy pikemen, so they don't have great morale already. And with a flank like that, that makes them break en route. So here come some more units, but they're exhausted, so they're actually not going to last very long in the fight. And again, because I'm only defending and I'm maintaining this formation, my guys get to basically refresh, and so that they don't have to worry about exhaustion, and they have pretty good morale for that. Looks like I've dispersed some of my reinforcements. And I'm bringing out my war dogs so they can really do some good damage, get some good flanks in there if you use them correctly. Now it looks like I'm moving them out this way to get them out of the sight range, and so these units don't feel the need to chase after them, and then I can get a good flank on their rear. But we'll see how that goes. And again, I brought my troops back, got back into that square formation, or it looks like I've got kind of a curved formation here, but it still serves the same purpose. These are Arabian spearmen. They're good for holding a line, but not really much else. So I'm not really worried about them. But they're going to rout before they even get to me. Throwing their javelins. And there they go. See, they lost already half of their unit before they could even make contact. Okay. Oh, it looks like in the meantime my cavalry flanked them here. So what I ended up doing was I sent that cavalry that was hiding over here, I flanked them, and then I sent my other cavalry, which had originated over here, out and around, and attacked some of their reinforcements which were on the way. And here's a good setup. They were chasing my other cavalry, so they're out of formation, and they're moving. And you can maximize those kills by getting a good cavalry charge against an infantry unit, regardless of the type, as long as they're moving. Now these spearmen normally would be a pretty big match, except they were in motion, and so I got a lot of trample damage there. And then I charged in from the other end with my cavalry, and so that makes short work of them. And all that's left is basically a waiting game. So again, some of that repositioning didn't work out so well. It's not ideal for me, but it's kind of tough whenever you have to constantly be monitoring all these different avenues of attack and these units. So ideally, when you're not playing Legendary, you should pause and reposition as soon as possible. Keep that formation up. Reinforce lines, get those flanks going. Looks like I was saving these War Dogs for the rest of those units. Once they funnel in this way, they all get massed up there. You can flank them really good with those War Dogs or Cavalry or Archers, but I didn't get to do that because the rest of them broke and routed. Now at this point you're going to notice that I brought out my General. A mistake that people often make is when a battle is over, they'll just end the game, or end the match there, and go back to the campaign window. But if you continue playing, you can actually send out like your general and your archers, artillery, and other cavalry to get some good free experience that you otherwise would be missing out on if you had just quit the match right then and there. So my general's he was safe the whole time, now he's gonna get some more experience. And that's pretty much how you do it, guys. Keep that half-square formation with infantry, melee infantry in front with archers in back. Bolster them with artillery. Make sure you have some units to reinforce that line if it starts to waver. If you maintain that formation, you get a lot of good flanking fire going on. Use your cavalry in these situations as flanks and try to keep them hidden until you want the enemy to see them, or it's too late. You can get some really good attacks on some artillery that's being brought up and ride down the rest. Anyways, thanks for watching, everyone. This is Alex again with Bronamic Gaming. Feel free to leave us comments in the section below. If you enjoyed what you just saw, we're going to be releasing more videos just like this one in the future, and we're going to be doing some campaign run-throughs as well. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again.